Welcome to our second town hall for YSDC. The purpose of this is to kind of give you this second update as to where things are and where we're headed. What we didn't have last time was a list of the YSDC board and staff, or for some of you to read, but for the members that are on YSDC, if you could stand up. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Kevin Magruder, I'm the Canadian College Rep.
Joanne Lukowski, Foundation Rep.
I'm Philip O'Rourke with the Chamber. I'm ex officio.
I'm Christine Robier, Chamber of Commerce.
Aaron Arlono, Planning Economic Development Coordinator.
Mike Slaughter, President, YSDC.
Lisa Abel, currently Executive Director of YSDC.
Jean Marks, Yellow Springs Community Foundation, ex officio.
Johnny Burns, Village Manager, ex officio.
So we have microphones.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for coming. I'm going to jump right into this and let Lisa get started on a brief background of YSDC and some of the projects we've done to date.
So we have up here in the agenda, what we're doing is welcome and introductions, brief background. Why is YSDC doing this? Timelines to give you a status update of some various things going on in the project, and then questions and comments. Also up here is the YSDC mission, which is to support, incentivize, and attract economic development in Yellow Springs and Miami Township. So I'm going to start a little bit back and talk about what the YSDC has done before this project. I started with the YSDC in 2019. We became incorporated in 2020, and that's when we were designated by both the village and the township as their economic development partners. So right away, we jumped into helping the township sell the former fire station. And then we moved on to multiple property purchase or ownership investigations with Antioch College. None of those panned out, but we did spend some time and some money trying to get some things done for that. We received a grant for a microgrid community solar installation, which we're hoping to really move forward this year as well. And then we spent some time, once Intel and Honda LG decided to put in large installations within driving distance of Yellow Springs, we spent quite a bit of time putting together an economic development communications portfolio, especially targeting the supplier networks for those companies. And then in the midst of putting that together, then Joby Aviation near the airport also announced their plans to start manufacturing here. So those are the things we've been working on back before this project. And then Michael's going to kind of bring us up to date from there.
Some of the things that happened in 2025 that Lisa mentioned, part of the reason that I got involved with YSDC was to focus on some of the high-tech businesses, the Intels, the Honda battery plant, Joby, those types of businesses that we could maybe attract some of those subcontractors to Yellow Springs to help this village. As Lisa said, that has slowed down significantly, but that is still on our plate to go out and do the presentations, talk to the people at those facilities, and try to get some of those vendors that may want to relocate in an area such as Yellow Springs, because they do business at other sites other than Intel. They go to Wright Pat, they go to Dayton. There's lots of supplier networks for some of these new technology companies. Plus, they fit the model for Yellow Springs. They're clean businesses, they're high-tech. Many of the folks that work at these companies don't actually go to the office every day. They work out of their homes. They may want to live in this village, and they commute maybe 1 or 2 days a week. Some of the other things that we noticed happening in 2025 were the transitioning of some of the downtown businesses. Some of that is due to discretionary habits and spending, people pulling back their dollars and minimizing things such as going out to restaurants or recreational activities. The other things that have affected business are obviously tariffs, interest rates, recession fears. That's all played a role in what's happening here in town. Late in August, so I'm going to talk about between August around the Labor Day weekend, YSDC and 3 to 5 other interested parties were invited to tour the hardware store. Lisa was part of that group that toured the hardware store. And we were informed that they were going to list the property on that Tuesday, and they were going to take offers shortly after that. We convened and had an emergency meeting at YSDC, and we initiated a loan renegotiation, and we made an offer on that Tuesday after the Labor Day weekend, and it was accepted later that week. Things began to move pretty fast for us. Why did we get involved in this project? First of all, that's a key location in our downtown business district. It's a historic building, and we had a desire to see if it could be revitalized as an historic building. And it's a well-known business, Beaton Hardware, that's been here forever. I shopped there and went in there as a kid. Timing. We noticed that with some of the businesses in town, they were coming and going and transitioning, and we thought it was a good time to get involved to try to help sustain the downtown businesses and help them grow if possible. And then last, the location of this building gives us a chance to really put something in there that complements the other businesses in downtown Yellow Springs. Between the closing and the offer, September to December, we had to do quite a bit of due diligence on the building since it is an old building. There were fire safety issues. We had to do asbestos inspections and testing on some of the flooring and the plaster areas. The electrical and plumbing inspections had to be completed. We also had some structural engineering work performed on the building. This enabled us to secure a loan with the Community Foundation, insurance coverage, and we also hired a property manager for the tenants that are currently living in the building. We are in the process of selecting a project manager as we move forward.
Okay, so I want to add with due diligence, the reports, the findings from due diligence are on our website. If you go to ysdc.org and then look at projects and then look for the 252, 254 Xenia, you'll find all those reports. Of note, fire safety, we're addressing 9 violations, electrical, fire, smoke and CO detectors, fire extinguishers. We need ceilings installed between floors.
Fire escape.
What's that?
Fire escape.
Fire escape, right. We have to install a ladder on the back for the fire escape. So a lot of things to fix it's got to be done. We've got people living there. And also, when people hear about asbestos, I just want to make a comment about that. Floor tile is put in, I think, before the 70s. I don't remember the exact date. Will likely contain asbestos. And a surprise to me, plaster at one point in time was mixed with asbestos for fire protection. Those kinds of locations of asbestos, it's called non-friable, meaning if you don't touch it, it doesn't go anywhere. So if you have that kind of tile on your floor in your basement, don't try to pry it up, because that's then when you start to send the asbestos into the air. So that's the good news, is that if we don't touch it, nothing will happen, but we're going to probably have to touch it. So we needed to know what was going on there. Okay, so since we closed, which was on January 9th of this year, Like I said, we've done the fire safety updates. Oh, exit signs and lighting, that was the other thing we've installed for the apartments. We've updated leases, utilities, banking, and then we've provided timelines and goals to the board. Sorry, it's not so slick. Okay. So that's what's been done since closing, and then what's happening in the next few weeks is that the fire safety, installing the drywall ceiling in the basement of the hardware store, installing the fire escape ladder, which the ladder has to be fire, I don't remember the acronym, but it's got to be approved by the fire department to install, and the installer has to be approved by the fire department. As you may have noticed, the really beautiful caution tape at that corner this winter was because of some dangerous icicles, if you look 3 stories up, hanging off the corner of the building. So we need to address, or take a look at the roof, look for leakage and drainage issues, and try to figure out what we can do with those. The hardware store, this is a really interesting, so I met with Dan Badger a week or so ago, who owned the hardware store last. And he showed me some historical pictures of those 2 buildings. And the first picture was maybe 1906, and there were, he said, look at the steps in front of the hardware store. There were 3 steps up to the hardware store. Huh. And then the next picture was 1916, maybe 10 years later. He says, look at the steps. There were 4 steps. And he says, Short Street got lowered then. He says, you can still see the dirt on the side of the buildings where they lowered Short Street. And then he didn't have a picture, but he said, he thought 1920 somewhere, that those steps went away to the hardware store. Well, how'd that happen? So you couldn't, do anything with the street or the sidewalks. So the owners at the time cut the floor, like took half the floor depth away inside, which happens to be the joists that hold the building up. So there's joists there, but there's half the thickness. So we have to assess what to do with the floor and how we make that safe for people to be in that space. We've been getting a lot of inquiries. When's it going to be available? When can I put my hat in the ring to use the space? When can I rent it? We have a few things to go through first. Certainly don't want anybody gathering in that space when we still have the flooring issues. And the toy store was, Jamie moved out February 2nd, I think was her last move out day. And it appears to be in good shape. She did an awesome job of preparing that space. I don't know if anybody's seen the video that she put together of she and her friends transforming that space to what it was when she opened, but it was quite a job. So it's in good shape, but we're still going to have electrical and fire safety inspections done just to be sure there's nothing to worry about there. So that's in the next 2 to 3 weeks, those things are going to happen. And then the next 2 to 6 months, we'd like to generate some detailed layouts of the building as it is now. I'm just going to say building, we're just talking about both buildings together. We're going to assess lease concepts for those first floor spaces. What would we like to see in those 2 spaces? And then begin our design concept and usage scenarios for the whole site, which is just kind of brainstorming. What could it be? What could it look like? What would be great for the community? What would be the most helpful, et cetera? What would work there? Because you can't, so for example, if one idea is to put a restaurant in, I'm just throwing it out there, it's not a real thing, it's just an idea. But if we did, that's a totally different layout, totally different set of requirements than if we said, oh, we want to put an electric bike shop in there. Totally different setup. So we have to really think about longer term, where do we see the use of space going? Then from that, we can develop some cost estimates to figure out, where to get funding. We'll figure out then feasibility, scope, schedule, budget, risk management of these different concepts, and then try to pick one or two that we think we can really move forward with. Parallel to that, we're going to create a working group to identify funding opportunities, because the sooner the better on that. And then we're planning to probably hold another town hall in late spring, early summer to let you know how we've done with this next several months and where we're at with the process.
I think you covered mine, Lisa. All right. Again, you talked about goals for 2026 and 2027, concepts, what the space could be, as is now and later, and identifying best design concepts for long-term use of the building. So there's a lot of work to do, and make sure that we can get funding to do that. Lots of things could be done, it just takes money. So again, that's the long-term goal for the hardware store property. And any questions? I'm going to open it up for questions.
The goal is for the YSDC to retain ownership of the building, is that correct?
I don't think we know yet.
We don't know.
It's gonna, depends on all these things we figure out.
Okay.
For questions, can one of them have the mic?
Oh,
Yeah.
so you have
There you go.
You have a loan outstanding, 500 grand more or less. So you're going to have to pay back that loan or maybe convince the foundation to forgive some of it. So you're going to have to generate income in that building. I'm sort of double checking and you're nodding your head. Okay. Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, we'd be foolish not to, but we need to make sure it's safe to use. And I might add, Tony, if you think about an old building and you know you're going to have to do a lot of work to it, but it's going to take a while to get to doing that a lot of work, then you can use the space for now, but at some point you're going to have to say, I love the work you're doing in this place, and in 6 months you're going to have to move out because we're going to have to do this construction. So that's kind of the caveat, and that's when we do get to the place where we're going to request proposals for use of space. That's going to be part of it, is making sure the folks who want to put their hat in the ring know at some point you're probably going to lose that space for a period of time while stuff happens to the building.
David Turner. I know you don't know the answer to this question, so I'm making it very broad. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have been mentioned. Do you anticipate this being below $5 million or $10 million in ultimate cost? I know, miles away. I'm just sort of curious. Or a few million. And the second thing is, I hear you promise you're going to put a restaurant in. What are you going to call it? I'm going to put it on Facebook right away so people know.
Are you hiring?
So yeah, you're right, we don't know construction costs, but that's part of that whole design concept and scenarios. So the other thing that I think we would like to hear from you tonight is, we heard, and there's still some, they're back there. There's still some sheets, some comments from the last meeting. There were a lot of ideas about what we could do. If you have an idea and you're going to implement it, then you'll be part of that proposal process. What we'd like to hear tonight is also, what do you not want to see? Absolutely not, no way, please don't. So if you could even address that.
Donna Howard. Who's going to decide and how you're going to decide who goes in there?
So the idea at this point is that the YSDC will develop some set of criteria, and it's not going to be secret criteria. I'll tell you when you're ready. But it will be, and that's what we're trying to get more from the community is what do you all want to see? What do you not want to see? What's going to work for you? And that'll be then part of that criteria development. So it's a little different than we just need to rent the space and we're gonna take the highest price. It's not gonna be that. We have a little bag or two, yes.
So are you going to do a survey or what?
I hadn't thought of that.
Okay. How are you?
Yeah, but yeah, we could do that since we don't have everybody here, obviously. Yeah.
Craig Leisure. So a lot's been talked about the hardware store, but with the ex-toy store space, are there possibility of plans to work on that first, make it more viable for rental immediately, so that the hardware store side can be somewhat funded?
Yeah, I mean, unless there's a surprise from an electrical or fire safety standpoint, yeah, I personally, I expect the toy store to be leasable in a matter of a couple months.
So when you,
He's got the mic for you.
So when you say that there were 4 steps up to that hardware store in the history, well, there's 4 steps up to the toy store now. So was that even? Like, that's how high it was? And are those 4 steps to the toy store going to stay there? Because they are a disaster. The door is as heavy as can be, and it just pushes you right down the stairs. So it's not good. Good deal.
I don't know how to solve that right now, but, I mean, the door we can probably solve, but I don't know about solving the steps yet. But yeah, we got that feedback last time, so it'd be nice to make it accessible.
Another in a litany of impossible questions to answer. Sorry, my name is Riley. I work for the local paper. How will the occupancy selection process for this be different than the selection process for the former fire station? And can you maybe explain how that process went and what lessons were learned along the way and what you might do differently from those lessons learned in that process?
So you're going in my Wayback Machine now.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
I wasn't here.
And there was a committee that was part of that selection process, and I was not part of that. But what the board did is came up with what, based on conversations with folks in the community, and based on what council and township were putting together as their values and goals, the committee put together a set of community values for the fire station, and then screened for those values. And I honestly don't remember what they were off the top of my head. What wasn't published was what those were. So we knew what they were, but the people applying did not. So I think that's one thing we're gonna do differently. We also had the latitude, as long as we met a certain threshold with the township of they needed to get a certain amount out of the fire station. As long as we met that threshold, we had some latitude again about who to choose. So we ended up not going with the highest bidder, but more with what seemed to be a better fit compared to the other options. But again, I wasn't on that committee, but that's what I remember. You asked something else, but I don't know what it was.
So what now? So what would be different? So you spoke about outlining first values.
Right.
What will be the, I guess, value criteria for this property, and how will the selection of those value?
So
how do you
far,
first select the values? What will that process be? And then how will the application of those values look when you're selecting the future occupant? Again, a litany of impossible questions, but I'd be remiss if I didn't.
All I know right now, from being in a couple of town halls and from talking to a lot of folks offline, is that the community wants something that is also good for the community and not just for visitors. I don't hear that it has to be an either or. What I do hear is it has to be helpful to people who live here. That's the only thing I've heard so far. We haven't really started that selection values discussion yet. That's a starting place.
Somebody on the front row.
I got it.
You mentioned there's quite a number of corrections, upgrades needed for fire safety and all that sort of stuff. A lot of them having to do with the tenants on the second floor and some structural stuff. I'm curious whether this is on your radar or not. The third floor that's been unoccupied for a while, is that at all something that will also be upgraded a little bit to make it rentable or habitable, or is that too far? Is that too difficult?
Well, I don't know about too difficult. We had a couple of realtors that went up there during the tour, and the realtors were just like, I can live in this space. It's surrounded by windows. It's one big open space. The floor is permanently bowed from the weight that was up there at some point. The windows are crummy. I don't think the roof leaks into that floor. So, so we don't know yet. But, I mean, if the building is, reconfigured as it is, then it makes sense to do something with that third floor.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to go back and address the accessibility, of course, which is a very short term that gets thrown around all the time. And it has always been my understanding, and even when I went to Wright State, that it was a law that when a building was sold, it had to become accessible to the handicapped.
I don't know. I would look at
I don't think anybody in Yellow Springs knows. If they know, they ignore it. Because there are so many places in this town that are not accessible to me. And it has to be on the top of the list. Accessibility. It's time for us to wake up. We are an old village. We have people falling and hurting themselves, and then they can't go. And they got money. They're the rich people. They can go in and they can buy stuff in that store. If they could get in the store, or if they could get in the restaurant. I can't even get in half the restaurants, So accessibility is just absolutely has to be first. What I want to know is, if it gets resold, does the whole thing get resold to a new buyer that is going to be able to change and make it into what he wants it to be? Is it going to be in a raw state before we decide to resell it? Or are we going to complete the building and then try to resell it? Or is reselling a real option?
Those are all questions where the answer is I don't know. We don't know yet. We don't know how far we can take this. We don't know if we can own it for a long time. We have a lot more homework to do.
But do we have a preference?
Do we have a preference? It depends. I mean, I don't think that YSD sees itself as an owner of a downtown building and a landlord. I mean, we have a lot of other work we want to be doing. On the other hand, if it provides a stream of revenue for us to do our work, maybe we do that. But there's just so many questions we haven't even begun to address to be able to answer those.
Part of the project management will be to come up with answers to those and look at all the facets and avenues that we can go down.
Michael.
Speak up. Okay. Part of the project management role will be to determine what avenue to take, which way to go, which way to turn left, which way to turn right. A lot of work to be done, but that's where we're headed right now. And I hear you with the access. We do need to look at that. And I hadn't really thought about it, to be honest. So, for the question.
Kellyanne Tracy. In the interest of full transparency, can you please address the fact that you were under a gag order where you were not able to disclose all the information to the village prior to the closing? Also, the fact that you were not able to fully inspect the entire building. In fact, the majority of the second floor had no inspections. And that why, when the inspections failed across the board and everything, that you did not negotiate the price down.
The sellers requested, because it was a real estate transaction, they requested that it remain confidential. And we actually spilled a few beans that they were not happy about, because we didn't understand what they meant by not disclosing anything. So that's the first. That was on request of the sellers, and our realtor made it clear that the sellers had other options, and we need to conform with what they requested. So we did. I don't know the story behind why we weren't given access to the tenants' rooms for fire inspection, but we were basically told, you can go in there once you own the building. You can't go in there now. And the fire chief said, I can't go in there unless I have the permission. So, again, hands were tied. I mean, we could have walked away, and we talked about that, and we decided not to. So, and then the third piece around, once we knew all the issues, at least from the fire inspection, why didn't we negotiate a lower price? We discussed that with our realtor, and he said, they're not going to budge. They're not going to budge. So you can ask for this, and they're probably going to drop a deal. So we said, this is more important to us that we get the building and make it right than to lose it at this point.
Did your realtor represent the seller as well?
No. They were two separate realtors. They talk, the realtors talk.
So they approached the realtor. So your realtor approached the other realtor and said, what's the chances of you taking a lesser price? And they said no?
Yes.
Great. They wanted the appraised value, commercially appraised value, so that's what we paid. And we're going to spend tens of thousands of dollars to make it right. I mean, just the base level. So there was one over here first.
I just want to say that I really would like to see more accessibility downtown. As with most folks, I'm sure, when my mother was living with us and had a wheelchair, there were a lot of places that I couldn't take her. Now that I have trouble getting up steps and I have trouble going places, accessibility really is important for all. Also would like to say that, we've done a lot to bring outsiders in to help with, make things better for the town. But I think we need to spend some more time on making things better for the people that live here year-round, instead of just people that come in occasionally.
You have an example? What would you like? We're looking for ideas.
Okay, I'll think about that.
Okay.
I got that part.
Okay.
Well, I just would mainly like to thank the Development Corporation for jumping in and doing all that you have done to ensure that this is a village-wide project. Somebody could slide in, buy it up, and put in something that nobody wants. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing.
Any more questions?
I haven't heard any, please don't ever put this thing in that space. So yeah, Gary?
I just, the questions about accessibility, my understanding, which could be completely wrong because I don't bat 1,000 on these things, is that the whole thing about ADA accessibility is not related to ownership changes. It's got to do with new construction and perhaps the degree of renovation. But I think the bar's pretty high in terms of what you need to renovate in order to make it ADA compatible. Otherwise,
I think if it's a public building.
I think, yeah, for older buildings, it's part of it.
I'll research it. I think if it's a public building, it has to be.
But this is a private building. It's not publicly owned. I mean, it's
a retail space.
Yeah, which is privately owned.
No, everything's privately owned.
No, government buildings privately owned.
We'll look it up.
Yeah.
We'll look it up. We don't need to
Yeah, but there's regulations.
speculate right now. We'll look it up. Yes.
Oh, a suggestion about not what to put there. I think the village already has an abundance of cannabis shops.
Mr. Impossible?
Any parties for Gary? We have another canvas. In the last reporting of the news, I believe it was stated that YSDC is going to be reaping the rent from the tenants who are not going to be displaced. And I was really encouraged upon hearing that, and I guess I would ask if that's still the case, that the tenants are not going to be displaced as more information continues to come to YSDC. And I guess on a more like granular level, can I ask, is how will those rents be collected and used? And will that money be put in a separate kitty from other things? Will that money be used to help displace the cost of the loan? Or will that money be used to make improvements to the building? So this is just can I ask a general question? How are the tenants doing and where will their dollars go?
All right. Let's see. Displacement. It's the same, right now, it's the same answer as we would give to anyone who wants to use the first floor, which is at some point, we're going to have to, have you find a different place to live because we have to do construction on the whole building. We have a property manager, and she is already aware that someday this could come up, and she is fully on board with being able to help them find housing. So right now, there's no date, there's no plan, but for now they are where they are and they're set. So in terms of income and expense, so we have a separate fund for the rents to go into, and 2 weeks ago, I thought that the rents would cover the maintenance that we've started. That's not necessarily going to be the case right now, but that is the idea, that the rents can help offset general maintenance. It's not going to offset fixing the flooring. It's not going to offset if we have to put a new roof on, obviously, but if we have to, for example, if we have to put in a new outlet in someone's room, hopefully the rents offset that. So that's kind of the idea there.
Yeah, thanks.
And some of the immediate work that we're doing, again, if the space needs to be vacated for a day or two, we're going to work with the property manager to make sure that they have a place to go during that period of time, and then they can come back into their apartment. So we're flexible.
Yeah, we just had new electric run into the 4 sleeping rooms over the past couple of weeks. And the folks didn't have to move out. They were asked to at least tidy up so that the electricians could do their work. But I think there were a couple guys that hung out in their rooms while the electricians are running the wire, and that was okay. It worked.
Thank you. I'm Carmen Milano. I think just as you're talking, what occurs to me is for me personally, I would prefer for it not to become something that doesn't have a lot of public energy. So not to become psychologist offices where one person at a time goes in there.
Can't hear you.
Not to be something like a psych office, or not to knock psych offices, but something, I'm looking for something with energy very much involving those of us in the community and in public, so it would be very dynamic, very apparent about what's going on in there, as opposed to closing it up on the first floor. Maybe on the third floor, or if eventually tenants want to move out on the second floor, maybe there's another decision. So other things that are not so needing public and that kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to dynamics to happen there, and it to be very welcoming, multi-generational welcoming if possible. So those are my big thoughts.
Hi, community. Shane Houston. I concur to all of that. And I also concur to what Donna said about possibly a ballot ongoing through Facebook, whatever social way to do it. I feel like everyone has their ideas of what they want, young and middle-aged and old, and I think a ballot would really help narrow down, a final decision. That's all I have to say.
Can you talk about, I'm Nathan McClargy. Can you talk about negativity that has come up in this process, people that are totally against it, and for what reasons? Has there been a lot of pushback?
I don't know any. Yeah, we'll just stop there. You know what? We had a meeting here in November and it was packed. And there were people in the hallways. And I don't know for sure, but some of the first people that showed up said, "Is this the Short Street discussion?" No, this is about the hardware store and the toy store buildings. But you're welcome to stay, and they stayed. But I think there was, this is my own opinion, there was a lot of energy around the Short Street closure. There was a lot of energy around the village having a deficit. And then here we come on buying a building that's right in the middle of all that. So that's what I think was going on back in November. But honestly, we're not getting negative feedback at this point.
Are you aware of any? No, don't want to say. Okay. As far as the ideas for the building, just to let you know, we discussed putting the link on the website if you don't have an idea now, but somewhere we can gather all the thoughts and ideas on how to move forward and what you'd like to see.
So tonight, we're not discussing anything like that, is that correct?
Well, if you have
We're
some
not
thoughts,
sharing ideas or...
we're welcome to give us ideas tonight. If you
So
want.
what we got last time were kind of pie in the sky ideas. It'd be great if it was this. It was great. We're ready now. Two things. We're ready to hear what will work for the community in general. I think what you all said, something that's dynamic, that's vibrant, that involves the community, engages people here. That's a little hard to define, but I think we can start to paint that picture. And then we're ready to hear from people who say, I've got an idea that's going to make that work. And so we want to give those folks a proposal form so they can fill it out and explain how this is going to fit with that idea. And again, we talked about, the Development Corp hasn't put together yet our criteria. So we need to do that to make it, open and so you know what you're applying for. So what I don't think we want to use our time, what's left today, is with ideas that no one's really going to actually make happen, or ideas that aren't going to pay the rent. We heard some of those last time, great ideas, but I didn't hear how that was really going to work, or if anybody was really going to do it. So that's, I think, if you can understand that difference, that's what we're looking for.
So there is a reservoir, there is a place where people can submit ideas online.
There will be.
Oh, okay.
We're going to talk to our web guy tomorrow. Hold on.
I wonder if it would make sense, we have an idea, but we're not prepared to do it in an open forum like this, but I wonder whether it makes sense for you to put some more criteria up on your website, start to collect those ideas, which are more concrete, and then have another meeting and maybe even ask people who have those ideas to make a short presentation about what their idea is and get feedback from the people who are, who will attend, so that people can hear and contrast, but that you've already sort of vetted the ideas before that happens. Just a suggestion.
That's great. Thank you.
I haven't really thought about this, but thought this out, that having worked in that building recently, and then there's a few of us in the room that have worked in that building, I admire your gumption, because you've alluded to how much it needs, but you have not even scratched, you've not even told us, you've not even scratched the surface of what those who work there.
Go in the basement after a big rain.
Yeah, but also, things are leaking through the walls. But this is unrelated to me working there, but I know 20 years ago I was up in those apartments, maybe even 30 years ago, and I thought, this should be condemned. And that was 30 years ago. And I'm told that nothing has happened since then. So, I mean, people don't realize those aren't apartments above the hardware store. It's a boarding house with a shared bathroom down the hall. And some of those rooms are in really bad shape, or at least they were the one I saw 30 years ago. And so I admire you and your committee for having done this, but boy, if we think this is going to happen tomorrow, we're all fooling ourselves, because it's a huge job. And are we trying to protect a historic space? That's another thing. Or are we trying to protect a major focal point of downtown? Very admirable. And when this all happened and things were happening, and we all knew that eventually the building would be sold sooner or later, and probably more sooner than later. Many of us who talked about this worried that it would be bought and torn down, and who knows what could have gone in there. It could have been a new Dollar General, because that's what could have happened. But so I admire you. I know that you know that there's a lot of work here, but I don't know if everybody else does. That you scratch the surface by how much it really needs structurally.
Thanks. Thanks for that. It's not a short-term piece of work. You're correct.
We have about 10 minutes left. So first, I'd like to ask anyone who hasn't spoken if there's anything you want to ask or comment on. If not, then I'm going to talk to everybody with Riley. So just
Thank you again. Thanks, you guys. As far as presentations go, are you guys, or can you, is it possible to put details of exactly what you would expect from that kind of presentation? When we have to come with decks, projector, or is it as simple as just standing up and talking about it?
I hadn't thought about making it really hard. No, I'm just kidding. The initial concept was just, here's what we're hearing from the community. It's going to be general, like not a cannabis shop, and a space that the community wants to use and is beneficial to both visitors and people who live here, and it fits these types of values, these types of criteria. I don't think we thought anywhere beyond that, like, is it just a one-page form, or is it a presentation? And it probably, to be fair, it probably should be some sort of presentation, because how much can you convey on paper, right? So, yeah. Okay, Riley.
What was the reluctance?
Because you asked 10 questions, I can't remember.
Okay, no, this time I'll just ask 3. What is the likelihood of this building being torn down? And at what point would you approach those crossroads? Just 2 questions.
All right. So, as
You're going to say I don't have an answer.
That's a short answer? I don't know. As we said last time, and this part hasn't changed, we don't know at all, kind of to Dave's question, we have no idea how much it would cost to do one or the other, to do Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. So we need to get our arms around that. Then we need to figure out where the money comes from. So I think the question about historical building, there are historic building tax credits, but there are also a lot of hoops and things you have to do to earn those credits. Would that be worth it? Don't know. We do know that structurally the building is not going to fall down. We also know there's some real concerns about the structure, about the cracks in the foundation, about posts that are supporting the building, whether they're on solid footing below surface. There are questions like that we're going to have to figure out. So until we know a lot more about that, and then a lot more about how much it's going to cost, and then about how we're going to get the money, we don't know. I mean, is it easier to raise $1 million versus $5 million? Probably. But maybe not, if, depending on what the scenario is. So, we don't know.
I just want to, this is just a point, to remind us all that Tom's Market is also in flux at this point. And this adjacent space is possibly something that could, I don't know. I mean, what I was thinking about is that, the cattle ranchers, whatever, who bought all of that acreage out on Daniel Springs Road. Depending on what happens with Tom's, the toy store place could become a storefront for those people, as they have, I think, I don't know if it's in Enid or someplace else, especially if Tom doesn't want to continue having a butcher shop or whatever. And so that was just something that, was percolating in my head, but just that whole space is really, going to be in action.
It occurred to me, I'm just wondering whether there might be an opportunity for people to just come together without it being a formal, without being a formal meeting, kind of like this, and just to throw out ideas, just to discuss ideas. So I don't even know if I'm asking something, but it's just occurring to me that might be a next step, and I'd be happy to help make that happen. Just to get together, have a potluck or whatever, and just talk about ideas and share them before presenting something.
Okay, yeah, thank you. All right, we got a couple more minutes. Anybody else? Oh, nice job.
I just wanted to emphasize, there's been a lot of people have different ideas and, of various sorts. But it's really important to remember the finances behind this all. The building costs a bit to purchase. It'll cost a bit to renovate. And unless somebody is all of a sudden going to donate a huge amount of money, which no one's particularly aware of that happening, the operation needs to be able to sustain itself financially. You need to have businesses that have some degree of revenue that can pay the rent, because, not just the purchase price, the upgrades necessary, and inevitably ongoing renovation, especially if you want to fix up the third floor and make it something, and who knows what long-term might happen with the second floor. There needs to be, if I can put it this way, there needs to be a degree of practicality of the kind of things you put in there. And when you talk about something that benefits the community, you just walk up and down the street in terms of, so what do people go to? Local people go to all the restaurants. There's various types of shopping in the various shops that people go to, and local residents don't. I'm not going to mention any names. I've lived here for nearly 40 years, and there's at least a half a dozen shops downtown that I have never stepped foot in, So there's some like that, but there's some I go in all the time, and occasionally, or family members do. So anyway, I just have to point out, you have to try to be practical and think in terms of the finances associated with it all.
In terms of the ideas and thoughts you had mentioned, I'm downtown, I'm in the Emporium. If anybody wants to stop me and have a conversation, I'm open to that. On top of we do something formal.
Awesome.
While we had this conversation, I was thinking about Europe and our favorite places to visit, a town that you might love in Europe. What do they have that we don't have? What are the things that this village could use? Considering the size of the village, I know that we have limitations because we're not as big as we could be to have certain things, but maybe we can think about our favorite European village when we're deciding. Possibly.
I'd like to say that the last two people said pretty much what I was going to say, but again, re-emphasize practicality. We can build something that, villagers say they want, and then nobody shows up. We speak a big game about supporting local businesses, but do we really support them? Of course, there are things that you cannot buy in the village, so you have to go outside the village. I have found that to be true. And you often see me at K. Roger, out there on the outskirts of town near the highway. But it's only because I can't buy it at Tom's. We sacrifice to shop at Tom's. But you could do all kinds of things that people say, oh yeah, we want. And Rob, I'm sure you've experienced this too. We want a bakery, we want this, we want a what? A hardware store. But do we really expect that people will support it?
Yeah, and that's got to be part of the proposals is the business case, right? And you're right. If 90% of the town says we want a bagel shop because Rob doesn't make bagels, and then nobody goes to the bagel shop because they'd rather go to Rob's, well then what do you just do? One more sheet. You have 1 minute.
Okay. As far as the proposals go, are these proposals for possible temporary pop-ups that we can experiment with and see how they roll out? Or are they for more permanent?
I love the idea of pop-ups. I really do. That's my own personal bias, especially given the nature of this uncertainty about the building. It also would provide folks a chance to try out something without committing to something. So I think that that's something the board needs to really kind of dig into and think about. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.